Welcome to Leaders Lounge, an exciting way to know about India's top corporate leaders, their experiences, profession और ऐसी बहुत सारी बातें जो हमें कहीं और सुनने को नहीं मिलेंगी। आज हम मिस्टर राजीव नेठानी के साथ इंडियन टेक इंडस्ट्री से रिलेटेड बहुत सारी बातें करने वाले हैं। Rajiv has worked as the youngest HR head in many leading organizations, including HCL, Global Logic, Dassault Systems, Infogain, and currently he's working at Persistent Systems. So let's take a sneak peek of India's tech industry through Rajiv's lenses. Hi Rajiv, I'm so glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Richa. It's pleasure to meet you as always. But very happy that I'm associated with this initiative with you and DGLA University.
Thank you so much. So, Rajiv, you have been the youngest HR in multiple organizations. And I'm sure कि कुछ महीनों की या कुछ सालों की मेहनत नहीं है, बल्कि आपकी approach towards life would have been very different. So, let's begin with your inspiring journey, your formative years, and the path that led you to where you are today.
See, I'll actually take a step back. I'll tell you, I come from a very small village called Pandori in Pauri Gadwal of Uttarakhand. And that place itself gave me a lot of humility and resilience. Life in hills is not easy. When I was 4, we moved to Delhi, NCR. Larger part of my life, we had lived in Noida only. And I have seen those struggles which any individuals from a lower middle class family would have gone through during their upbringing and initial age of their life. I had seen my mom negotiating with grocery shops, even for a single penny. So I've seen all that stage. In addition to these basic, foundational principles and values which I got because of the place I come from, because of the family background I have had, the hard work, the value system, the resilience, the humility, these are driven from the family. And that actually helped me become a much better human being with the enabling attitude. But that was not enough. You need to have the right opportunity. You need to make sure that you deliver on the commitments. You need to continuously challenge and evolve yourself. And that is what I was able to do. Despite of not coming from the premium B schools, when I started to build my initial formative years of career, I was feeling challenged seeing people coming in from the B schools and getting into better roles. So I had to start from the rock bottom at the pyramid. But that did wonderful things to me. One, because I was committed, I was curious, I was learning, and I used to go to office. I remember my first journey with HCL was such that I would be in the office all 6-7 days. Sometimes I would even go to Sundays because those days laptop was not a concept for masses.
Absolutely.
It was the privilege. And if you need to work, you need to be in front of your system, workstation as we used to call it. And I would actually make sure that I'm in the office all the time, most of the times, spending hours and hours just to build the foundation for my career journey. And that really helped me pivot well functionally. And these value systems also helped me in terms of growing myself. When I was in 22 or 23, I became assistant manager in HCL itself. And I had 5 direct reports who were older to me. Of course, it was not easy. Every transition is different. Leading self is different than leading others.
Yeah.
And that learning is very different, right? What value add are you driving and delivering or adding to the lives of people is very different from what you do to yourself, because there's so much of control you have on your own self,
Yes.
which is not the case with others.
Valid.
And from there, I kept moving very fast in my career. God has been very kind. I had met wonderful people as managers, mentors, even colleagues, that they enabled my journey possible.
Yeah.
I was the youngest director in Global Logic. I was in my 20s, became director there. I was the youngest HR head in Global Logic for India, as well as I was playing global OD role. I was the youngest, when I joined Dassault Systems, I was the youngest in the leadership who came from outside to join the organization. Otherwise, we had deep-rooted leadership who had homegrown, because it's a product company. In product company, the depth is always very important and critical. When I joined Infogain, I was the youngest VP, a vice president, and then I became the youngest CHRO as well in my 30s itself. So that's the journey, I've seen. But all this was possible not because I was putting in hard labor or hard work. It was also possible because of the attitude, which was much more enabling, because of the roots, the foundations, the values which I carry with me. And one important thing which really put me on the toes was I was challenging myself all the time. So, what does it mean is I personally believe in the mantra of 70-20-10 from a learning and growth perspective. 70% we learn on the job, 20% we learn from others, which is more about learning from our supervisors, mentors,
And like
leaders.
this
No,
also.
no, no. Learning is mutual. So I learn
Yes.
from you as well, Richa. That's never the case that it's only one-sided. Learning is always mutual. I learn from my daughters, by the way. There are so many occasions when they will put a question before me, which will put me on reflection. And I would remind myself, yeah, she's so right. And 10% learning is the most important learning in my view, which is when you invest your time, money, and efforts on your self development. And that is one thing which has always played with me.
Okay.
I am a lifelong learner. I don't study because I need to gain certificates or degrees. I have so many masters behind me, but not because I wanted to have degrees.
Yeah.
It was just to enhance my perspective. It has actually evolved my perspective every time. It only makes me become a better person. And that really it's like a Pareto model. We have 20-80 rule
Yeah.
where the impact of 20% efforts
Yes.
are there on remaining 80.
Yes.
The same thing this 70-20-10 rule does. So the 10% investment which you put on your self-development really creates impact on your 90% career journey. And that's another reason which has evolved me and grow in my career fast.
So nice to hear. मतलब बहुत अच्छे points हैं for any person to absorb within. Such as you said that leading oneself and leading others, these are two very different things. And I'm sure आपने इतनी कम age में you started leading people, 23, 24. So it's something definitely has helped. And I also love that 70, 20, 10. This is also an amazing thing. I think everyone should, irrespective of the age. So अभी specifically आपने HRE क्यों choose किया अपने लिए? What made you go in that field?
Choice नहीं
It
थी.
just happened.
It just happened. Some certain things happen because you don't have enough choices.
हाँ जी.
But if I were to look back and be very honest with you in terms of, at some stage you start to think about what you want to be career-wise, right? And that was happening with me when I was in my college. Or even subconsciously when I used to be in school. I'm a KV product, so I've studied in 3 different central schools. I used to get fascinated by teachers as their profession, and I used to wonder, could I be one of the teachers someday? And then what happened was my first defining moment of my initial stages of thinking about career or building the basic foundation started when I had a very open and profound conversation with one of the best teachers.
Okay.
Her name is Dr. Manju Yalavadi. She used to teach us English in my college in Delhi University. So I wanted to spend time with her to seek some guidance because, I came from the background where there was not enough guidance available. And so you were always your own, finding ways for you to move forward, navigate and figure out what is right trajectory journey for you. So when I was talking to ma'am and she asked me this question, I was asking her, give me guidance, what should I do after graduation and this and that. She said, so she was curious to understand my journey, my background, my family, and then she realized that this guy comes from a family where, he needs to do something which is much more meaningful from immediate career start perspective. Because I told her, I want to become like you.
Okay.
I want to be a lecturer or I want to be a professor.
Okay.
She said, that will take 10 years from now. Because you'll have to do, after graduation, master's, MPhil, PhD, and then that journey is longer. But I see that you are the only son with 3 sisters and your father needs your help. So you should do something which is job-oriented, skill-oriented, and get into some professional life. And that was a defining moment for me because I started to think about what I should practically do from a skill development perspective. And that's where I started to learn more about HR, and that pivoted me into something like this thereafter. But this is the entire story what led me get into this. But probably I really like interacting with young minds. If I'm not HR today, because now I have some experience, if I'm not wearing my HR hat, possibly I'll wear a counselor hat
Okay.
or a professor hat or facilitator hat.
Wow.
These are the different professions
Wow.
which could define me better than.
So मेरा next question का answer तो आपने अभी दे दिया. Otherwise, I would have asked you that what is the alternate career you would have chosen for yourself. But yes, counseling and leading people, guiding them, mentoring them is something.
Even
is
teaching maybe.
Teaching, yes, yes.
In different style, because
Yeah.
I don't have that teacher-student relationship learning approach or model. It's
Yeah.
more of facilitation driven.
Right.
But yeah,
So Rajiv, आपने like I could see that since very beginning you were in the technology world only. You were
Yeah.
working with different tech firms. So what are your views how the tech world has evolved over the period of time when you started and to this day?
Immensely it has evolved. For example, 2003, when my HCL journey started from a technology standpoint, that time outsourcing was a big thing. And the outsourcing was mostly from a traditional IT services perspective, which was more around maintenance support. You would even hire people who would come from engineering and civil and train them to become IT professionals,
Yes.
right? So that's how the IT was.
Yeah.
It was evolving, and you needed people
Yeah.
with engineering mindset,
Right.
and remaining you were training them,
Right.
building the training institutions to put them into that factory model based approach, and eventually they would start to, because the complexity of engineering work was limited from a software development standpoint. Then it evolved, and then we started to talk about SMAC. Social media became a big thing. Mobile was becoming a big thing. Analytics, everybody was talking about cloud, on-prem to cloud kind of transformation. And then I was, during my GlobalLogic days, the OPD space started to flourish. The traditional IT services companies and the OPD-driven companies were big differentiation. So OPD companies were outsourcing product development. So while you were not owning the product or IP of it, but you were working with product companies to design their product and develop their product, which was a real quality work. And that's kind of, got deeper into various organizations, and that's where the software developers' quality also improved in India, because now people were working on a real development work. And then I saw platform became a big thing. Now platform, everybody was talking about platform. It brought a lot of complexity because it was not about only coding. A lot of new jobs which evolved from that perspective. Ultimately, if I'm using a mobile in today's context, if I have iOS, how does it look? What experience do I have as a user? Is very important. And from that standpoint, UX, design, CX, these kind of things became very, very important and evolved. So I saw that context coming into play in the technology industry in a big way, where without design, you would see that, or without usability, or without customer experience, you would see the entire development has no meaning, because ultimately the user has to feel good about experiencing that product. And then analytics, both from a data engineering, data science perspective, has shaped the industry in a different way. Everything is cloud now these days. Automation has come in, and today everything is generative AI. It's a big moment of change I'm seeing in the industry. Now, earlier it used to be people-driven. Now we are talking about agentic bots, which is going to be defining the overall context of product development cycle. So significant changes, right, in this entire time frame. Every time it's changing, it's evolving, it's fascinating. It forces you to evolve yourself as well, as an organization, as people, as leaders. So that's a journey.
Yeah. So even today, if we see the numbers, like in the university segment, I talk about our university, GLA University, we have 22,000 students with us, and out of which majority are taking BTech CS. So our question is that हम लोगों की approach as a university क्या होनी चाहिए, because the trend is changing, demand is changing, industry requirements are changing. What should be our approach as a university as well as students? Because आपने automation की बात की, आपने AI की बात करी, तो हम लोग कहाँ पे अपने approaches को change कर सकते हैं to?
See, I think one of the things which I have observed is there's always a lag between the way the industry is moving versus the academia is moving. And it's a fundamental issue, because that's how it is designed. Right? For example, in schools, the pattern doesn't change for years.
Yes.
Right? The pattern which I experience, you experience, most part of that still exists in schools today.
Yes, that's
right?
right.
It won't change.
Yeah.
The foundations and fundamentals don't change so much. In academia also, there is a defined curriculum, and then there are certain norms and your expectations or principles you need to follow from academic context and journey perspective. That brings a little bit of rigidness in terms of experimenting beyond those defined norms.
Yes,
But in
yes.
corporate life,
Yeah.
you're actually serving the end
Hmm.
objective, which is whoever is your consumer, customer,
Yes.
etc. What are their preferences? What do they need? And
Right.
basis that you're pivoting yourself every time. You're also being defined by what competition is doing,
Yeah.
right? So, and that journey is very fast. And most important in these days is technology is changing very fast.
Yes.
Every time we talk about it, and we have been talking about it ever
Indeed.
since I got into this industry. I've been hearing this only. Every
Indeed.
2 years, something changes. New
Bilkul.
technology comes,
Bilkul.
shapes the way we
Yes.
operate,
Yes.
function, and even deliver. So every
Right.
time reskilling is a topic
Yes.
within us.
Always. Huh?
Now, if we were to look at academia from that perspective, how many times are we really looking at it? How soon do we look at reskilling ourselves? Reskilling in terms of our faculty perspectives, and even from the way we are teaching the curriculum, and even the kids' experience in that journey. Right? I see a lot of good work is happening these days where there's so much of synergy between academia and the corporate world. I see that a lot of corporate people are now becoming integrated
Yes.
part or integral
Yes.
part of the universities and engineering
Yes.
colleges, where they are bringing in that missing element of filling that gap. But I think there's more to be done. Is the speed same?
Yeah.
Are we actually making sure that it is not driven basis the placement ratios versus the quality of faculty versus what really
Yeah.
happens on a day-to-day, everyday basis in the lives of people? Are they just learning basis the theoretical lectures and context, or is there a lot of practical hands-on experiences?
Yeah.
Because for them, what becomes more important is, and when we talk about skill, for example, skill is when you apply knowledge. The word competence itself has 3 components to it: knowledge, skills, and attitude. Knowledge is what you get from your academic journey, but that doesn't make you skilled.
Yes.
I may have a lot of knowledge, but I have not applied any of it. Nobody will hire me, right? Because they don't see I bring the relevant value and experience to the organization. Similarly, when I am a student or I am going through academic journey, I may be given of great knowledge because I may have a great professor who are telling me about the concepts, the technology. But if I'm not applying that, then I will never become skilled.
Yeah.
And the skill is very simple. You become skilled by practicing, by applying the knowledge again and again and again and again.
Right.
That makes you skilled. And from that context, do we have live project or product development opportunities for them? What kind of live assignments are we giving to them every now and then? Are we challenging them on the soft power skills as well or not, right?
Very
Are we
important.
assessing them on those aspects? Because today the world has become one. In technology, our employees would be working not just from 300 different locations within India because of being remote and hybrid, but also working with global teams across the globe.
Indeed.
So now it becomes very different. It's a different problem statement, which means that the power skills which I need to have to be very different than what I've experienced so far. Because in academic world, my ecosystem is limited within that
Yes.
classroom
Yes.
or maybe within that campus.
Absolutely.
Now, how do I bring that vastness of
Right.
interaction,
Yeah.
network, social perspective? That's also another important topic. So I think it's how do we make apple to apple comparison and then see what is the relevance from application perspective. I know corporate also needs to provide opportunities to kids in terms of live assignments,
Yes.
but they have their own challenges. Sometimes it's not easy.
Yes.
They have different problems to deal with. I sit on the other side of the table, so I know what those problems are. It's not always
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah.
but the truth lies somewhere in between, right, where the change can happen.
So yeah, you're right. Actually, integration is very, very important, and abhi bhi integration is there. That universities, the futuristic universities like us, are focusing on bringing practicality in the academic space. Especially if I talk about JLA Greater Noida, the core focus is into industry oriented learning. But उसमें भी आता है कि what more we can do together. Though you have picked up very important aspect live projects and internship, थोड़ा सा क्या इसके ऊपर हम और डिस्कस कर सकते हैं कि कैसे इंटीग्रेशन पॉसिबल है प्रैक्टिकली wherein we could produce a better workforce. That
I think
is.
इसको हमें we should see it from a multi-directional or multi-dimensional perspective. So one is what corporate and academia partnership would drive,
Yeah.
and there the objective is very clear. What is the end objective? what is the, so you need to see how the problem statement of corporate life is getting addressed, which means if suppose companies which are hiring from your place, there could be better opportunity in terms of building that ecosystem through lab process, through regular interactions with the people who work in the corporate life. If they could come and have those conversations and help people become aware about what's happening, and also give them assignments, and also if they can extend part of the assignment to these people from a real life experiences perspective. The other is that maybe the relationship is not from a placement point of view, but corporate may have like-minded people who want to go back and contribute in the academia, more as a social initiative perspective. That's another channel through which you can actually make that happen. The third most powerful untapped potential is the alumni, which we don't really talk much about because that's fragmented. Now, academia can actually channelize that in a very structured way by reaching out to alumni who are in different tech industry and see if you can actually bring some cohort of that on regular basis. And they may not have official consent to provide real life work or experiences, but they can share their examples. They can help them create pseudo projects where they can actually spend their time to review, do mentoring, and even give feedback. And their perspective would be much more relevant from an industry standpoint, and that would be much more relevant from a learning and applying that acquired knowledge and becoming much more skilled. Because ultimately, जब इंटरव्यू होगा तो यही कहानी बतानी पड़ेगी कि मैंने क्या क्या किया है. ये नहीं बताना पड़ेगा I know these. What have I done? How did I apply that learning? So, us point of view, say this alumni has another potential which could be done. And GLA keeps engaging with a lot of corporates from time to time. This is my second opportunity of visiting your campus in some capacity. These interactions also help in terms of bringing the real example, real experiential stories before the kids. Because sometimes you never know what could trigger a particular inspirational thought in someone's mind, and that person really starts to take charge of his or her life. You never know that, right? So those things also help. I think it's just that how do we double down and go deeper into it.
Indeed. And I really like this thought that alumni definitely in a very core manner help us bridge this gap.
Correct.
So अभी अगर स्किल सेट्स की बात करें टेक्नोलॉजी वर्ल्ड में स्टूडेंट्स को व्हेन दे आर इन कॉलेज ऑन व्हाट ऑल एरियाज दे शुड स्टार्ट वर्किंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि ये क्राइटेरिया ऑफ सिलेक्शन रहता है फॉर एनी कैंडिडेट. I'm not talking this from only freshers perspective, but even people in the lateral hiring, if they want to switch, they should know that these are the skill set or the criteria expected from the tech world that I should be working on.
I think सबसे पहले we should tell our kids when they enter into the colleges or engineering schools that don't look for getting into job first. Everything is foundational first. So for example, when I meet, and I'll come back to this point which I'm trying to put together, but I want to digress a bit to bring the context. Whenever I talk to people, I share my example that when I got into my formative years, why was I so excited going to office every 7 days, for example, almost every 7 days or 6 days? Because I was building my foundation. That time I didn't know, or I didn't have that aspiration I'll become CHRO one day. That time, the curiosity to learn was the key driver for me. I wanted to be relevant in that moment. And that was my focus. If we look at that journey, whether from academic context point of view or a corporate context point of view, the important thing is what is our foundation. If we make a building of, let's say if I get into corporate journey at year 0 or year 1, what I'm looking at a journey of 25 years, probably 30 years and 20 years, whatever that be, depending upon how long do I want to serve the corporate life or corporate world. If I don't have a solid foundation, which we laid down in the initial years, formative years of the journey, what will happen is after certain years, the building will collapse.
Yes.
Because the foundation would be weak. Same thing applies in our academic context. If I got into a particular engineering stream as part of my learning journey, my focus is that can I master it? Not what job will I have. Maybe I'll have something different. I may do something different. I may be defying the norms for world. I may be becoming an entrepreneur. So I need not to think about what is the outcome of the overall efforts which I'm putting in today. My objective should be that I want to be the master in what I'm learning today. I want to learn the concepts first. and I want to apply that concept. I need to enjoy that. If I'm learning well, I'm applying that, I'm becoming skilled, contributing in the life projects, really building something meaningful out of that, and also contributing in extracurricular activities, because that's where the leadership development happens. Am I leading something? Am I learning to collaborate with other colleagues or classmates or batchmates to deliver something meaningful? Because these are the power skills which are going to be defining the moment for me. When I say competence has 3 components: knowledge, skill, there's attitude also, right?
Yes.
Which is the most important thing. I have seen people falling through the cracks in their career, despite of the fact they were amazing, knowledgeable leaders. I would have looked up to them to learn many things, but they did not have the enabling attitude, and because of which they fell through the crack in their career. And there were midlife crisis for them. And that's where the attitude is the most important thing, because it drives, it's like, driving knowledge and skill together.
Right.
Knowledge and skill without attitude has no relevance. So these are the ways through which the young generation should look at their academic context, and not just because what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
Because if they go with this approach, they will become employable. They don't need to seek employment then. If they are employable, everybody will come after them.
Yes.
So there's a fundamental difference between getting into employment versus being employable. Employment इसलिए मिल रहा है क्योंकि आपने कुछ पढ़ाई करी है. You have a degree with you. Employable is you have acquired skill, you have a right attitude, you have the solid knowledge because you have hands-on learned it, applied it. Now people will look for you basis your value.
Yes.
And that will take you to places. These are some thoughts. I may not have the best answer for
No,
them.
this is indeed. जैसे अब वही criteria, I think, and this is something, this suggestion is for everybody, despite whatever field they are in. I think अगर मैं ये कोई अगर MBA का student भी इसको सुनेगा, तो बिल्कुल बात है, अपने आप को upskill करो, right attitude रखो, and how passionate you are in building your formative years is something very important and very relevant. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
अच्छा, text में अब this is something more which is coming in my mind when I'm sharing. जितना भी बीटेक के स्टूडेंट से बात करते हैं ना, तो वो बच्चे ज़्यादा कोडिंग में फोकस करते हैं. अगर हम लोग थोड़ा सा उनका पर्सनालिटी या सॉफ्ट स्किल एलिमेंट देखें, वो थोड़ा सा मिसिंग होता है. उनको लगता है हमें अच्छी कोडिंग करनी है, हमें एक स्क्रीन के आगे बैठ के काम करना है, दिस इज़ व्हाट वी हैव टू. तो उधर की तरफ वो ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं देते, द सॉफ्ट स्किल एलिमेंट. आपके क्या थॉट्स है कि सॉफ्ट स्किल टेक्नोलॉजी जो बीटेक स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनके लिए भी उतनी ही रेलेवेंट है जैसे कि एक MBA ग्रेजुएट के लिए होगी?
100%. देखिए, if we look at ourselves, and that should be the case with every single so-called pursuant or aspirant engineer, the 3 dimensions of leadership: leading self, leading others, and leading business. If you say that, okay, I will only focus on myself and I'll lead myself and become a great individual contributor with a lot of ownership, a lot of responsibility, etc., that's great. But you'll have your career limiting perspective also.
Yes.
Because you can't go beyond a particular point. This beautiful book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There,
I've
is so
read
relevant.
that. Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is.
It's so relevant. It's like this, every morning, and I tell people, and I do it to myself as well, and not so often as I may sound, while saying this, that when you wake up every morning, look at the mirror and ask yourself, are you relevant in the context of today? The answer could be yes, maybe, or no. If the answer is yes, you should feel happy. But then ask the second question. Are you relevant in the context of tomorrow? And then you'll realize that maybe these are the things which I need to really focus on and challenge myself, learn, stretch my boundaries.
Yes.
The same thing happens. So if you only pursue one particular dimension focused, which is concentrated on academic thing only, you'll have a problem.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, what are you doing? Your work, whether you open your business, you work in a company, or you serve the community, you're still working with people in all the dimensions. So you're leading others, influencing others, or working with others.
Yes.
So that piece you can't take away. So you need to be very, very careful about your learning on that dimension as well, which is the power skill, for example. And the third is leading business.
Yes.
So whatever you do, you need to have a good, solid understanding of what the impact you're creating.
Yeah.
Whether you build products or you work for companies which are building products for for their end customers, you need to have that understanding of domain, you need to have the understanding of that industry, you need to have the understanding of that context. So all 3 are very, very important in my view. So the holistic development is very important.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll tell you on a personal side, and here universities and colleges could also invest a lot of time. My personal belief, if suppose you would have asked me a question that what defines my life?
Yeah.
There are four pillars of my existence.
Okay.
That physical well-being, intellectual well-being, emotional well-being and spiritual well-being. अब मैं थोड़ा सा कहानी सुनाता हूँ आपको इसके ऊपर.
बिल्कुल.
Physical well-being, my definition is God has given us this body. We need to look after this body. अगर मैं कल पुणे में था, कल शाम को दिल्ली पहुंचा, आज मैं आपके स्टूडियो में हूँ, it's because I'm mobile.
Yeah.
I'm mobile because I'm physically fit to be mobile.
Indeed.
Otherwise, I would have not. Now, then I have a responsibility to look after this body as well.
Yeah.
So what do I do from a physical fitness perspective? So in my case, for example, I'm a yoga enthusiast. I do cycling. I've done difficult expeditions. For example, Dehradun to Dhanolti and back, high elevation. Chandigarh to Solan and back. I do trekking. That comes naturally to me because I come from hills. So physical well-being is very important. The second of physical well-being is what do I eat? But that's very personal. You have your different choice. I have my different choice. So I will not delve into that because it's very personal choice based. But for me, my physical well-being is driven basis fitness and what I eat. Then second is intellectual well-being. I told you about 70-20-10.
Yes.
The curiosity of a child and the mantra of I don't know is very important. Because the moment you get into that space, you become open to learn new things.
Yes.
Then you have a curiosity to learn. Otherwise, you'll throw weight that, oh, I know it all.
Yeah.
Then you're stopped. Then you're done. You will never evolve yourself. The very reason I learn from everybody, including youngsters. Sometimes in the review, a youngsters who has just probably 1 or 2 years of experience, that person brings in some perspective which I had not even thought about. And that's amazing learning. You get from them. So giving the opportunity to people so that they could speak. They could bring in their newness, new perspectives, the creativity before you. And that's a learning for you. It's a mutual always, as I said. I told you learn from your kids as well, right? In my case, for example, I learn from them every day. And then academic journey in any case is always happening. So that I don't know defines me from intellectual well-being perspective. So I tell people who come into corporate life, if you have completed your engineering or masters, don't assume your learning is over. Remember, you need to keep investing on 10% of your development through learning, which means your money, your time and your efforts. If these three things you're doing, you're shaping your future in a big way. And third is emotional well-being. And that came to me as a learning through, in addition to the community, etc., the background I talked about, the resiliency I learned, the humility, the God's land, which gives you certain virtues, etc., was there as inherited values. But the real emotional intelligence learning happened two ways to me. One, as a concept, emotional intelligence, Goleman has talked about all those aspects of being aware of your emotions and other things, and organization behavior, psychology, TLAB process. I went through ICEP's journey as well. All that also shaped me to become much more resilient and a good human being. But one, learning on ontology really shaped my perspective about relationship. So why my discovery on emotional intelligence is, one, anything which happens in my relationship with any person, it's not because of that person, it's because of me. If it's not working, it's because of me. If it is working, it's because of me. Because I am the charge. I'm taking the charge of that relationship. Second thing is, God has been kind. God has made every person unique. So if I'm expecting people to behave the way I expect, is a wrong expectation. So it's again my problem. I need to correct that expectation. Third, it's a reminder, constant reminder to self that if I can't allow anybody to control me, which is the case, even if you ask a 2-year-old child who would have started speaking, would you allow anyone to manage you? The child will say no. And so is the answer you'll get every time. So if you can't allow anybody or let anybody manage you, how would you expect to manage somebody else then? That awareness, that emotional intelligence, that you are responsible for everything which happens in your relationship, irrespective it's a personal, professional, makes you much more humble, much more resilient, and much more aware of dealing with different situations. And the fourth is spiritual well-being. It's not religion. Spiritual well-being is all about being aware about who you really are, which is the soul's consciousness or mindfulness or a meditation-driven approach. There was a time when I got deeper into spirituality. I was part of Brahma Kumaris.
You mentioned
when we spoke first time, correct, you're right.
Yes.
I used to wake up 3:45 in the morning to do meditation. I was so deep into it, I used to take sessions. But what it did to me? It made me not just resilient, but also helped me understand the importance of resilience. For example, the formula of stress. And people who come from physics, they would know whenever we learned about objects and the stress in the object and the pressure, the formula was very simple. Stress is equal to pressure divided by resilience. So resilience of object will determine whether it will break or not, basis the pressure being put in. Same thing happens with us. Our engineering, inner engineering, if we are resilient enough, then how much of pressure we may have outside? The pressure of expectations, pressure of delivery to customers, pressure of performance, pressure of something else. All that is happening outside. But do I have resiliency inside or not? If I have a resiliency inside, I will not be stressed. And that's a formula of stress. And that resiliency comes when you become spiritually much more aware. When you're looking internal, you're doing meditation, or you are being soul conscious. And these four define me in terms of who I am as a person. And I think it's a holistic. That's where I say we don't teach all these holistic things together in any academic institution. And we should try to see how can we integrate all of it, because it really defines every single person in this universe.
सो राजीव, जैसे हमें ऐसे स्टूडेंट्स भी मिलते हैं जो कि बहुत क्लियर हैं लाइफ में उन्हें क्या करना है. सो देयर आर कैटेगरी ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स हु वुड से दैट मैम आई वांट टू गेट इनटू एचआर फील्ड ओनली, एंड दैट टू इन द टेक वर्ल्ड. आई वांट टू गेट इनटू टेक सेक्टर. सो एनीथिंग दैट यू कैन सजेस्ट देम दैट व्हेन दे आर इन कॉलेज वो किन बातों का ध्यान रखें, किन चीज़ों में अपने आप को अपस्किल करें व्हेन दे आर वेरी स्पेसिफिक वेयर दे वांट टू गो.
And they are engineers.
And they are MBA HR students.
Okay, already pursuing MBA
Yes.
HR. So,
Yes.
so if they're pursuing engineering, I think this a very good combination,
Okay.
especially if the person wants to get into tech industry,
Okay.
because it gives them the basic understanding of what
Yes.
really happens in that industry from a technology standpoint, and that's a good mind space to get into. So it only enriches your perspective, and then MBA in any case will shape them in
Yeah.
terms of becoming a HR professional. I think and some of it we discuss in terms of what are the other elements of
Yes.
evolving them in terms of exposure, giving them assignments, and also soft skill, power skill based interventions. But let them enjoy, let them concentrate on what they're studying, because that's very essential. Important thing generally is when you are in functions like HR,
Yeah.
you're expected to be much more visible, much more communicator, much more articulate, much more presentable, because what's happening is you're driving people, you're leading others, right? It's not about leading self so much. Leading self is very important because ultimately that's your foundations and your values and ethics. But leading others means either you're influencing others as HR professionals, or inspiring, or leading. So when you need to influence, then do you understand how to influence? Because you may not have a seat. See, ultimately what happens is, in our HR profession, a business HR who may be as young as 2 years old is talking to the delivery head and enabling that person to make the right people related decisions. Now that's influence to me.
Yeah.
And that influence will have a lot of conviction as well. So those skills, those mindsets, how to even prepare for that is very important. If they can learn it as part of the academic journey, nothing like it. That's one element of influencing. Inspiration is very important. And inspiration to me, the way I define is, it's not so much about content. It is the overall executive presence. So, how do you look? Sometimes people don't pay attention to it. I'm not saying from a women perspective, but more from a men perspective. They're not very careful, conscious about, it's like this. If suppose we are in a room where there are 100 executives. Now, it so happens that we only get attracted towards very few, 2-3 people. They have not spoken anything yet.
Yes.
But that's the executive presence, right? Their exterior outlook,
Yeah.
the way they are walking, the way they are carrying themselves is part of that, because that's also part, in inspiration, it's a combination of stuff.
That's
The
right.
gravita, for example. And it's not about just content. Content is very important because it brings credibility. But the congruence in which you speak, your mind, body, soul, they need to be in congruence.
Yes.
Right?
बिल्कुल.
So that congruence is also very important.
Yeah.
The tonality, the pitch,
Yeah.
the body gesture, that all this combined with content will help you. And you need to speak right things, right? That's for the content. And you need to make sure that
Right.
your outcome
Right.
of what you're saying
Yes.
has to have that impact on the audience for which it is meant to be.
Yes.
And that's when the inspiration becomes very important.
Right.
And then you work with people, you lead them, you lead from the front. So these are some of the other aspects which are very important if you are considering HR, and if people can learn some of these in addition to the academic context, functional context, the journey itself. These are the differentiator in my view.
And is it necessary that in order to be in HR position in any of the technology company, I have to have a BTech? Can just a BB or a BCom with MBA combination can also work little harder and then be a part of it?
In HR, yes.
ऐसा कोई limit
HR,
नहीं है.
see, HR with engineering. In fact, there was this question came to me some time back, and I kind of responded. And ET had covered a digital story on HR profession with engineering, where it helps, etc.
Okay.
It may be there on Google as well. So my response to that was, and my response to this from a practice perspective has been, is if I'm hiring a CNB person, I would expect that person to have a good understanding of data, analytics.
Yes.
The logic has to be very important.
Correct.
It has to be a combination of logic with empathy, for example, right? Because ultimately you just don't create framework without keeping people at the center of it. And that's why empathy becomes important. But their engineering with HR MBA combination works well, in my view. If you're hiring somebody for driving HR technology, it can work well.
Yes.
I'm not saying it won't work if you're not from engineering background, but that's a good way of running. If analytics in HR could be another area. But if you talk about any other HR functional area, including these as well, it doesn't necessarily need to have engineering as a precursor before MBA. It doesn't define that way.
Which is a sigh of relief for many students who are listening to this conversation.
Oh, I didn't know that they were thinking in a different direction. I'm glad that then we are clarifying it.
Numbers wise, if I say that if suppose 700 is a pool, we would see only 20 students who is in the combination of BTech and MBA. Majority are this side, and they are so much pro towards the technology sector. So I think this is a very good advice that you have given to them.
Technology is the industry.
Yes.
Having engineering knowledge is the only functional knowledge.
Right.
So you can still be in any industry.
Correct.
As long as your fundamentals and functional expertise are in place, and you have really applied those, what you acquired as part of your academic journey in live projects, as I have been talking about, make yourself more skilled, more employable. That's it, nothing else.
So you have worked with many leading brands, including HCL, Global Logic, Infogain, Persistent Systems, and I must not forget Dassault as well, Dassault Systems. So some of the lessons that you would like to share with us today?
It's a very reflective question, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of such defining moments or lessons which I've learned. Clearly, one I've very strongly talked about is the foundational years of HCL. Today, wherever I have reached, I would have not reached if I would have not really played significant role in building the foundation for me. The second defining moment was when I was in Global Logic and I became the youngest director, and I had that pressure within myself that did I really earn it? Because what happened was I joined them as a deputy manager. I became manager next year. I became senior manager subsequent year. And subsequent year I became director. So every year I was promoted. And I was asking myself, I used to ask my manager, why are you promoting me? It was a very difficult conversation from my perspective, that why is she promoting me? And she would tell me that you're not my relative. I'm not doing any favor to you. You have earned it. You have played that role. And she showed me those emails for director level because it was leadership role. 11 leaders she had reached out to. 9 leaders had given a thumbs up. 1 leader had given a neutral feedback, and one said, isn't it too early? Because, he's a young boy and every year you're promoting him kind of thing. That's where the feedback was. But it was great transformation which happened. Now, the reflection point for me that time was, and a defining moment for me was, so far I was successful because of my work which I was delivering. Now I was getting into leadership, which was more and beyond than what I was doing. So I started to challenge. I started to get into that space where I needed to ask myself, what do I need to do differently now? And it was a not easy process that time. It was still stressful process because I wanted to make sure that I would be successful in that new transformation. Because here it was more about managing dynamics, managing egos, managing different perspectives of people. And you're not representing and standing for your hands-on work. You're doing it for the function, for the people. And you are actually negotiating for the people-related agenda in the management meetings. I had a lot of learnings in those forums where, for example, we had annual compensation review presentation, which I was doing to CEO, CFO, and various other leaders. And there it was very focused conversation. I was asking for budget. And, I had a learning in terms of how to balance business and people agenda in a better way. So I learned a lot also as part of that transformation. But I used to challenge myself. I used to challenge, do I have a thought leadership? And that's where I started to go and speak in different forums. Prior to that, it never struck my mind that I needed to challenge myself.
Yes.
So I would prepare before going to next session. So today it's, I just walked in for this conversation. Had you met me then, I would have prepared for a week. I would have, looked at what all is relevant for that topic, for example.
Yes.
And I used to wake up till 2 a.m. preparing for the topic I would to talk next day. So those were the transformation then. Then when I got into product company in Dassault, very different experience. Culture was different, French organization. So it was a defining moment from that standpoint that, you need to unlearn everything.
Yeah.
So when I left GlobalLogic and got into Dassault, one rule I made for myself, that when you are making switches in your career, unlearn everything. Don't carry any baggage of the past that this is how I used to do. And there's a reason God has given us certain organs. God has given us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. There's a reason. Because God wants us to observe and perceive double to what we say.
Yes.
God wants us to listen more, double of what we say. And so what I do is that even now in Persistent, 2 months back when I joined, my only sole objective has been or was to listen, observe, and speak less. But that helps me learn faster.
Yes.
Because we always operate in the context. There's no best practice. The best practice is always in the context. Because every company is different, every culture is different. So first you need to understand that context of culture, people, business of that organization before you say what will work or what will not work. That's another thing which I actually started to do. And I think, another was when I got into Infogain and became part of the executive leadership team, got into the board level exposure. That board level conversations are very different. There's so much of perception management there. So you're being assessed every quarter. And in Infogain, we were private equity backed. And private equity is very aggressive always. So you're always on your toes. You're kind of, it's like every quarter you're justifying why you should win the organization.
Yes.
So there's so many defining moments, right, and learnings in this context. I may have an hour of conversation on that, so I should not go there. Let me take a pause here, and let's continue another topic as well.
Yes. So it is really interesting, and as you said, I am learning and I am observing.
Oh, thank you.
आपको काम तो बहुत पसंद है. This I know very well. काम के अलावा, what all things makes you happy?
Actually, as I said, my definition of life is on all those 4 well-beings, right? So if I'm not working, I must be studying something.
Okay.
So for example, today 6:30 to 8:30, I have 2 hours of that course which I'm pursuing.
Okay.
So every week I have 2 days, 4 hours just for the sessions, and then I have some follow-through work. Otherwise, I have family, my kids, my wife, we live with our parents here.
Yes.
I love traveling, so I'll find ways to actually get into those aspects also. Fitness, sports. I write articles, stories.
Okay.
I go and speak in different forums regularly. Also, I'm board of trustee of one of the NGO in Uttarakhand, so we also do some social activities there. One thing which I have done in addition is I've started to actually for last few years started to challenge myself and also start to explore what else could I do. And there are 2 discoveries I found. One, I had never imagined before that discovery that I could sketch anything.
Okay.
I thought I was the worst, but I started sketching.
Wow.
So I did some good sketching. And the second discovery was I always thought I was not a creative person at all. I discovered that I could write poems. I write Hindi poems. A lot of Hindi poems I've written.
Right.
So, these are discoveries which I try to make, and that's how I keep evolving myself and keep learning about myself.
बहुत मज़ा आया आपकी बातें सुन के. आपसे जब भी मिलो ना राजीव, कुछ ना कुछ सीखने को मिलता है, और इस बार भी डेफिनेटली आई हैव लर्नड अ लॉट. Thank you very much for your beautiful experience and the journey that you have shared with us today. One success mantra while we are concluding that you would love to share with our audience today.
See, there are so many. every stage has different success mantras because as you heard, I said the learning formula for me or mantra is I don't know, right? There's no shortcut for success. Your hard work pays off always. Uh, God has made all of us different and unique. So don't expect everybody to behave the way you behave. Take charge of your emotions, and anything which is not working in your relationship, you're responsible for that. Take care of your fitness is very important. It makes you mobile. It's very, very important. And build your resilience. So there's so many. It's very
So
hard for
many.
me to
There's
actually
so many
talk
and
about
all
one.
very important.
All very important.
All very important.
All very important.
Thank you very much for your time. It is such a beautiful pleasure to be with you, to had a wonderful discussion with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Richa. It's always pleasure talking to you, and thank you for the opportunity of having such a powerful conversation. It was very reflective conversation. As I mentioned, I just walked in for this session and not prepared at all. So you made it sound very conversational. So I appreciate you for that. And also it was very reflective. I was feeling emotions also at some stages of my responses. So thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you so much.
थैंक यू थैंक्स अ लॉट ग्रोथ एक जर्नी है और लीडर्स लाउंज इस जर्नी का एक इम्पॉर्टेंट हॉल्ट. अगर आज का एपिसोड आपको पसंद आया तो इसको अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ शेयर करना और उनको भी इंस्पायर करना, और हमारा चैनल सब्सक्राइब करना मत भूलना. Until next time, this is Richa, your host, signing off.